here on SportsRadioDetroit.com, live at Freddy's Pizza here in Melvindale. I'm Roger Castillo alongside my Freddy's Pizza man, Andy LaFata, Pete Savek, and we have our special guest from ESPN3. He does a lot of MAC football. We also heard him on Detroit Pistons basketball as well. Dan Gutowsky. Dan, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here. Dig it.
A lot of things to talk about, especially with going on with the showcase of the stars this week in Michigan. We're not getting into recruiting names. We're not getting into who they recruited. It was more or less the spectacle that
Ric Flair.
Michigan
recruited.
A lot of woos there.
Who did Michigan State recruit?
We'll talk about that. They had their best.
Jones, baby.
They had their best recruiting class. We'll get to that as well. A lot to get to. Well, let's kick off with the National Signing Day. You had Lou Holtz there as well. There's a lot of picks. Oh, do the picks first. That's right. Yeah, look at the picks.
You got to make people money.
Before we get to Michigan, before we get to the Red Wings struggles and the Pistons, Freddie, what are your picks for the week?
I got 3 picks for tonight. I looked at it all in the NBA. The first one's going to be the Pistons. We got the Pistons +4 in Indiana today. Ooh. I think the Pistons show up today. I think they win that game. Indiana played a tough game last night. They were beating Atlanta, and then they lost at the end. I'm going to take the Pistons +4. Now we got a big one on ABC tonight. You probably know the game. Golden State, Oklahoma City.
Oh yeah, and that's it. Is that at Golden State?
That's at Golden State, and they're favored by 8.5. I think OKC covers this game. They might win this game. Statement game. And the last one's going to be my lock. You guys are all going to laugh. It's going to be my lock. He called a game there this year with the Pistons. Phoenix. They've lost.
They're bad.
They're bad.
Yeah. They weren't bad when I was there, but they're bad now.
They've lost 6 in a row. Utah, I believe, has won 3 or 4 in a row. Utah is favored by 6.5 in this game. Phoenix is going to win this game tonight. Wow. Guaranteed. Book it. My lock.
Money line bet?
Money, I don't know the money line. For 6.5, my guess is going to be +180. Take the money line.
There you go.
Okay. As you can see, Freddie's taking your calls right now at
Phoenix.
313-888-3538.
McDonald's, hot and ready.
We're not going to take responsibility if you lose money, just as a heads up there. So we're not liable for your decisions based off advice, if you will.
I like those picks, Freddie. Nice, bro.
No, they're a little bold too as well. When we let's talk about what happened during the whole National Signing Day. He was Jim Harbaugh was on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday, making the radio rounds for the Super Bowl, and so he's been a busy man, busy week. But there's been, for a lot of Michigan fans out there, he kind of calmed. There's paranoid Michigan fans already are going to be like, well, it's going to vote to the NFL, and talked about that a little bit on the NFL or on with Dan Patrick, and he said the only quote he has was his unfinished business in NFL, and he said, quote, "No, let's just do business the way I look at it." And the whole spectacle of the Stars, how much money it raised for Chad Tuff, and the cost that's kind of been forgotten about. And a lot of people kind of thinks it was too much, but for a fact it's going to set something where Alabama, bigger schools are going to do this next year. But yeah, I'll start with you. The Michigan State also had their best recruiting class they've ever had, much to Freddie's dismay and Pete here as well with the Michigan fans. But Michigan State did a really good job as well, and I think the tongue-in-cheek, quote what Dan Antonio said, we had enough flair, and I thought that was kind of a good thing. But overall, I thought that. What was your thoughts about in terms outside of just Michigan, on National Signing Day, the hoopla, the whole, just it seems very almost like a national holiday. It seems like now.
Well, I thought it was very interesting. I didn't quite understand the scope of what Michigan was going to do. I understood there were, okay, it's a little unconventional, and then I see there's this big stage and all these names coming in. I honestly don't know what, and it's great that he went, but what would motivate Derek Jeter to go? Here's a guy, yes, he's a Michigan native, but he has no affiliation really with the Michigan program at all, but nevertheless, that's, kind of a sidebar. I thought, if Harbaugh wants to get attention in unconventional ways, that what he did is certainly going to work. Does that mean that other schools are going to follow suit? I don't really think so. I think, Harbaugh is a unique personality in a unique situation. Nick Saban isn't going to change his ways for anybody, or you know, you could mention the 10 to 20 ways, and you know, Michigan State, which, you know, obviously Mark D'Antonio and Jim Harbaugh are both very good coaches, but their styles are very different. I mean, D'Antonio's very close to the vest and just, you know, kind of doesn't really embrace that, you know, kind of, I don't know, new age recruiting mindset. So does that answer kind of what
Yeah.
where you were going to with this?
Yeah, it was kind of like, because, I mean, the hoopla behind it, comparatively speaking to what Michigan State did, was just, Cal had the best recruiting class they've ever had, and they just went and backed it out on the field, whereas Michigan sets up for the future, but recruiting classes are quickly forgotten about within a year. I mean, it's just, I think, for me, even as a Michigan fan, the whole pageantry, seeing Ric Flair with Tom Brady, and, you know, and the whole aspect of Michigan bringing out all the guns to do this, whereas Michigan State went out and said, we're just going to have the best recruiting class. It's not national top 5, but do they really need that? You know?
Well, most recruiting classes too, though, you know, when you see when guys get picked, like they did the other day, you normally don't see them for a year or two. But Michigan,
Right.
you're going to see a couple players. Gary,
Right.
the tight end from Asi, whatever you say his name, you're going to probably see him on the field this year. So you won't really forget them. And Harbaugh, he only needs one more thing now, man. He just needs a helicopter, man, with a big U of M on the side. He can just fly in.
I think that's coming too.
Matter of fact, you can fly right over Melvindale, right? The high school's right here. He'll be a top recruit right there.
It might be above us right now as we speak.
He'll be at the next Yankee Air Show
There you go.
out there in Belleville,
Yeah,
you know,
with a
getting
run.
ready, checking out what he wants to buy coming up.
Nice
just
that
to
you
be
shaved
like,
for the show today, buddy.
Hey,
I'm
absolutely.
welcome,
You know, I always like to show up with my best bed head and best 5-day face mask on.
You
so,
need Harry's shavers, man. That's what you need.
no way, man. I shave once every 5-6 days. It's perfect. Jim Harbaugh is one of the smartest coaches around. I mean, he's obviously proved it. I think he's appealing to the younger generation. I mean, we're starting to see, at least I'm starting to see now with spending Monday through Friday, doing sports updates I have to be on, you know, using all the outlets that we have to use to gather information. I see 3-star kids now doing their own videos, like for Northern Illinois, like declaring Northern Illinois, you know, having their own, like, you know, their high school giving them a show. And all this. Jim Harbaugh is just appealing to what the kids want. The kids want a show. Jim Harbaugh gave them a show. Kids like wrestling. He gave them Ric Flair. Woo! So, you know, you got to sort of, I give him credit where credit is due, regardless if Mark D'Antonio, like you said, staying close to the vest, you know, sort of doing it conservatively, which is fine, you know, just having a regular role. There's nothing wrong with that. I think they both recruited very, very good classes. Just because Michigan made a show out of it and raised over $120,000, which I think it's up to now $120,000 plus and still going because they were counting checks that were mailed in. Because I think the first article said $110,000, but that was without the checks. What's wrong with raising money for charity, especially for Chad Tuff? What's wrong with raising money for Lacey's Angels? Or I'm sorry, am I saying it correctly? Lacey's the Golden Laces, you know, for Lacey Hollisworth. So. What's wrong with it? I thought it was just fine. Just because you didn't have a party like Jim Harbaugh, don't be jealous.
Well, I think Dan hit the nail on the head. You said Nick Saban doesn't have to do wild, outlandish things down in Alabama. You know why? Because he wins.
Yeah.
What hasn't Michigan done in friggin' decades? Win.
Mm-hmm.
Who does Michigan lose to every year? Michigan State. Ohio State. They haven't done squadoosh.
Yeah, but
So they
Nick
knew
Saban
they-
had to kind of do the same thing when he started too. So
Yeah, but you know, Alabama's been a football factory since Bear Bryant, man. I mean, that was a volcano waiting to erupt.
Minus the
So
Mike
Bryce
Shula
Johnson got it.
era, of course.
But Mike Shula, but I mean, you know, Saban didn't have Twitter back then, and Facebook and all this stuff. So he did a lot of it, and just wasn't publicized the way it is today.
True, but you know, I think the whole spectacle of what's happening, Harbaugh did a good thing because he is identifying with the youth and the people that he needs, the young kids. They're all on social media. I mean, you ask a young kid nowadays, Raj, I mean, we're probably the youngest people around this table, they would rather have fame on Twitter than actual cash. You know, they want to be known, they want to be seen. So by Harbaugh doing that, to me, no, he's identifying and he knows what his target audience is.
Yeah, to that end, you know, Michigan's going to be judged in the end by Jim Harbaugh's record, and you know, you look at, I mean, not to be a pessimist per se, but you know, Brady Hope's first year at Michigan was great. and then it was diminishing returns every year after that. I mean, and I have no reason to think that Jim Harbaugh won't drive Michigan, higher as opposed to lower. But the reality is, for all the off-season stuff that he does that gets attention, all that really matters is what are they doing on Saturdays in the fall
On the field.
On the field, and if they're winning, and now, what's going to be considered a successful season for Michigan next year? Well, don't they have to compete for the Big Ten championship? And that means they have to, beat Michigan and/or Ohio State, which they
On
weren't
the
able
road.
to do this year.
On the
Yeah,
road.
both on the road. I mean, again, glad for all the renewed interest in Michigan football, but they really haven't. It's only 1 year, but there's still a lot of traveling for them to do to get back to where they want to be.
Especially now, they're now more so in the national spotlight with all this, and especially they have a top 5 recruiting class in the country, and they landed the #1 recruit across the board, which Michigan has not done in a long time. Look at the age of social media. You look at it probably a period of time where social media really wasn't using for active recruiting. Probably, I wouldn't say until probably the mid-millennium. Facebook was, even like in 2006, 2007, when Facebook started really cranking up, and Twitter started kind of cranking up, it wasn't as used as it is now. In the last 10 years, it's changed, but the expectation of what Dan said is correct. They have to win on the field. They're on the road. They had a chance this year with a lot of home games, and they kind of, admittedly dropped the ball a little bit.
Pooped the bed.
Pooped the bed a little bit, especially against Michigan State. That's
Ohio State, really.
No, Ohio State too. Ohio State was a golden opportunity, but they're not winning. It doesn't. This is all for naught. And yes, it brings a lot of money. Yes, you have Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson tape recorded conversations.
Sean O'Hara, you
Sean, yeah.
No, from Rudy.
Sean Astin.
Yeah.
Sean Astin.
No, he was O'Hara.
Goonies, too.
Oh yeah, was he?
In the movie.
Oh yeah.
Vince
like
Vaughn
it.
was the running back.
I forgot about that.
Funny.
Yeah, good call there.
He was the running back.
But
But-
there's. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, well, Raj, to me, Michigan's always had a good recruiting class. We've heard of recruiting class for years, even with Brady Hoke. Having a good recruiting class is like taking one of the cutest girls to prom and not sleeping with her. It don't mean squat ooch, you know what I mean? Like, it don't. You gotta show up on Saturdays, and
But Harbaugh's history tells you, everywhere he's been, the program has grown.
that is true.
NFL, people diminish that what he did in the NFL, when you talk about, D'Antonio and Harbaugh, three straight NFC championship games. I mean, that's no easy feat, man. So,
I take that here in Detroit.
yeah.
Jesus
so,
H.
So wouldn't take it anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe Buffalo Bills fans?
Well, they think just because Brady's good, don't hate on him. Unless he deflates footballs.
But overall, even like you look at Michigan State coming in as the 17th ranked class in the nation, according to Rivals.com, and 18 on 24sports.com and Scout. But that doesn't matter. State has done a very good job of continuing to win, and on a national stage, though, this is the question that a lot of fans have, Michigan fans and football fans have in general. Can State get it done on the next level? Now, the recruiting classes, I think, will reflect that. Now, if Michigan, with a higher national class ranking, getting the players that kind of, 4-star, 5-star guys, is that going to make a difference against the Alabamas in the world? And the answer, I think, is yes. State has done a very good job of plugging away, doing it, keeping it in 17th, and the argument can be made, well, are Michigan State fans complacent with winning the Big Ten, or they want that national championship picture? And I think looking at it from the angle of, you look at teams even like Iowa and Wisconsin, who had to get 3-star guys, who build their guys according that way. That's also makes a big part, and I think it changes the landscape for the Big Ten. Look at the East and West, the comparisons. It's not even close how many 4-star athletes ended up in the West, in the East, comparatively speaking, to the West.
Do you think they'll ever change the standings with Michigan State, and Ohio State, splitting it up? Why are they in the East? Or how is that right now? Is it
They're both in the
both in the East.
all three are in the East? Excuse me. So you think they'll ever change that up?
Well, that's a tough question because my guess would be no. I think because it just creates too many problems, and I guess you would assume that Michigan and Ohio State are never going to drop off. Michigan State probably shouldn't drop off as long as Mark D'Antonio is there. I think they, the Big Ten's pretty sharp. I think they would stay away from that kind of impulsive, you know, kind of balanced power